Hello,
We also
Ben.
have
Hello,
Indy.
Indy. Yes. How are we both doing today?
Wonderful. Indy is still blissfully unaware of what a camera is. So, you're getting a really good demonstration of what it was like to, direct a dog who doesn't know he's in a movie.
Nice. I mean, obviously, my first question would be, dogs have always been, man's best friend. And I think here we have got, man's bestest, most loyal best friend. How did you come up with the idea?
Yeah, I mean, I think every dog owner has wondered or maybe worried why their dog is barking at nothing or staring into an empty corner. So I think that as a relatable piece from the real world, combined with this trope from horror movies of dogs who essentially do the same thing, dogs who, when the family buys the old house that was too good to be true, and that's weird, the dog won't go into the basement, or the dog is, really fixated on that one creepy neighbor. Um, you know, I think people are familiar with the idea, and it's so easy to believe that because of their senses, which are better than ours with their hearing and smell, that they can detect things we can't. Once we kind of settled on that as the core concept, it was just kind of off to the races of trying to figure out how to tell a story with the dog as the only point of view character.
I mean, I do feel that people in horror films do need to trust dogs more, and believe dogs more.
Always, yes. Dogs, if you're in a horror movie and the dog is worried about something, listen to that dog.
Exactly, exactly. And Indy is obviously, not a trained animal actor. How did you kind of work with him to get such an incredible performance? I mean, just it's such an expressive face and just all, the sequences where he's, staring very intently. How did you achieve all of that?
Yeah, I mean, so the quickest way to answer that is that very slowly. We took a very long time to film, and we built the whole film around him. The entire way we made the movie, which I mean, in the simplest way, is that the only people on set were me, my wife, and my dog. We lived in the actual house from the film. That was Indy's home. We transformed the house into the haunted house you see. And then in terms of actually getting the performance, and I could put performance in air quotes because so much of the feeling and the emotion that Indy conveys comes from that stare you're talking about, that kind of just very neutral but intent expression. He's a very smart dog. We noticed this about him well before we thought he would ever be in a movie. Um, but if you're able to control his eye line by just either making silly sounds off camera, holding a piece of food, speaking to him, and then through just shot reverse shot, you can kind of convey the meaning and the feeling. People like to ask, like, how did you get him to look scared? And the truth is, he's never scared. You're scared. The shot reverse shot of dog looking off camera, point of view shot shows the spooky corner. And then we cut back to Indy, and the audience has done the math and said, oh, there's something in that corner that he can see that I can't. That's scary. The dog must be scared. The reality is no, the filmmaking has just told you how to feel.
Yeah. And how has Indy's ego been since, the premiere and I think was it South by Southwest?
I mean, I don't think Indy could ever think more of himself than he already does. This is Indy's world. We just live in it.
That's fair. That's fair. And I love that, what you're sort of kind of saying there about, the shot reversing, just your use of negative space. It's so hard, I think, to have a camera trained on a dark corner and to create fear when it's kind of it's just a corner. How do you kind of go about making it that much more sinister?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's both negative space and then also because a dog has such different proportions than a person, it opens up these new possibilities in the cinematography, which I was also doing with lenses and kind of the deep background to, also create, more mood and vibe. To give an example, a really wide angle lens, put right in a human actor's face is generally very unflattering. It just kind of distorts a face in a way that doesn't look great. But with a dog, just because they've got these big noses and great big ears, they look fine. They look great. And that extra deep background you get behind them, you can't help but look at this character's face who fills the screen, but then in those recesses behind them, what's going on in those shadows. It's kind of this interesting little, extra trick you get by virtue of working with an animal actor instead of a person. You can kind of, open up a whole new range of, lenses and framing you wouldn't have otherwise.
Nice. And this was obviously a very modest budgeted film, but you get such fantastic production values from your location. I know you said you kind of lived there, but how did you guys go about, building that design? Because, just the house and the grounds around it just add so much to this.
Yeah, I mean, partly it was that we had time. Time was our main resource in lieu of budget for sure. And part of that was taking the time to decorate each room. My wife and I, we certainly got advice from our production designer, on what would look right. Painting, thrifting, going to estate sales. I mean, it really was a fun family project to be working on. A very odd one, of course, because we were frequently looking for things that were kind of, run down or looked like they'd been like used in a family for generations potentially. So that was certainly a fun project to, figure out how to practically do. And I think kind of like the look we were going for, and this is reflected in the story, is that we were trying to imagine if like it's your grandparents' house from your childhood, but frozen in amber since like, the early 90s, and just has been left vacant since then. And then, someone comes back to it right now and it's still that same place, just as it was.
And why do you hope that audiences show up and support Good Boy?
I mean, I hope they'll come, not just because it's a horror movie, but because I think dogs just make for terrific characters. They're so relatable, and the film really is about the relationship between, the relationship and the kind of uncomplicated love between a man and his dog. My co-writer and I would like to say that, that we absolutely are writing a horror movie, but for Indy and his character, this is a love story. It's about, a dog who would do anything to save and protect the person he loves most. And unfortunately, they live in a haunted house together.
And what do you think? I think in the UK we're getting some take your dog to the cinema screenings. How do you feel about them?
I've just heard about this today and I am so delighted. One of my favorite things when I was, working on the film and I would send like a rough cut of a scene out to a collaborator to get their opinion. And so many times people would send me back a picture of them watching the movie with their dog. It's such like a fun instinct I think people have to like bring their own dogs into this. I hope that speaks to kind of that key relatable core to the concept that, people relate to this movie, even though it's my dog and he's not like every other dog. People see their own lives and relationships with their pets on screen.
Yeah, I mean, I watched it for the first time with my cat, who was terrified, twofold. She was terrified by the negative space thing, and she was also, there's a dog on the screen. So, it's not
Oh,
just dog owners, it goes across, it transcends all pets.
one of my favorite responses I ever got, this was a screening from someone who watched the film at South by Southwest, was people invariably will come up and say, oh, my dog does the same thing or my cat does the same thing. And someone was like, my parrot does the same thing. I think there's a good idea for a parrot in a haunted house movie, just a pet, but they can also talk. That's pretty
Yeah.
good.
And then people that like they're doubly not listening to it because it's saying like, get out of the house, get out of the house. And
Totally.
yeah,
Yes.
nice. Nice. Well, thank you, so much for your time. Yeah, it's a great film. I've loved it since South by, and best of luck with this and whatever you guys get up to next.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure chatting with you.